Hi there! In today's video we're going to talk about 5 ways to remove background from image in Photoshop, so let's get started. Let's start with the first method. I have imported this image to Photoshop and now I need to go to Properties, and you can see the Properties panel on the right. In case you don't find it, go to Window and you'll find Properties sitting there. So click on it and it shall show. At this point, you won't find the background removal option in this panel. You know why? Because your image is locked in the Layers panel. So click on the lock icon once to unlock the layer, and then check the Properties panel once again, and there you'll find it resting comfortably. Just click on the Remove Background option and the background will be gone. You see how perfectly Photoshop has removed the background and masked it out. You can even see the mask in the thumbnail view in the Layers panel. And now you can add any background of your choice to this image. Let me also tell you that this option won't work with any image. It worked so wonderfully on this one because it had a plain background, so for such images it's best to use this method to remove background. Alright, so it's time to move to the second method, and for that we're going to use this image. As you can see, the background is not so simple on this one, as it has the background of the table this glass is on and some area in the back that is darker than the table. And to compound your problems, since the glass is transparent, some of the table can be seen through the glass. But we're going to still try our first method on this one to see how it works. So let's first unlock the image, without which the background eraser tool won't show in the Properties panel. And now go to the Properties panel and click on the Remove Background option. I'd say it has done an okay job, but if you look carefully you'll find that it ate away some of the edges of our glass, which is highly unacceptable. So let's undo this by hitting Command Z on a Mac or Control Z on a PC. For this one we're going to use Magic Eraser tool that sits under Eraser tool. Now click once anywhere in the background to see what it does. You can see that it removed the background pretty well, however it also removed the dark reflection of the background on the glass. So let's undo it the way we did earlier. What we're going to do is reduce the tolerance a bit from the menu above. A low tolerance erases pixels within a range of color values very similar to the pixel you click. And a high tolerance extends the range of colors that will be erased, which is why parts of our beloved glass were eaten since the tolerance was high. Check the anti-alias option. It helps to smooth the edges of the area you erase. We're going to let the contiguous option remain checked. We need to select it when we want to erase pixels contiguous to the ones we click. In simpler terms, pixels that are physically joined together are contiguous. In this image we have colors with similar pixels in the glass as well, which is why parts of the glass were removed, so deselecting it will erase all similar pixels in the image. We don't need to select sample all layers as we just have one layer in our example. We'll let the opacity to remain 100% as we want to remove the pixels completely. Now that you know what's what, let's reduce the tolerance to about 10. And then click on the background once. Perfect. The area around the glass has been removed pretty well. The rest we can easily handle with other tools or with the Magic Eraser tool. You can click on them to erase them one by one. Actually, let's pick the polygonal lasso tool and click to select the areas to remove, and once selected, click on the backspace key or the delete key to remove them. Here you can even use the magnetic lasso tool or the lasso tool to make your selection depending upon your image. Once your image is clear, to fill a background you can go to Layer and then New Fill Layer and choose any of the 3 options. I'll choose Solid Color. Give your fill a name if you want to and hit OK. And from the color picker pop-up, pick any color of your choice and hit OK. Now drag the color layer to the bottom and there you have a new background. Alternatively, you can even use another image as your background, which I'm going to demonstrate later in this tutorial. Okay, so it's time to move to the third method to remove the background, and we're going to use this image for this illustration. For this one, we'll use the background eraser tool. The background eraser tool is really a brush, and just like Photoshop's other brush tools, you can adjust its size directly from your keyboard. So you can use the left bracket key repeatedly to make it smaller, or the right bracket key to make it larger. The way the background eraser works is that Photoshop samples the color that's directly under the crosshair in the center of the circle, and the larger circle surrounding the crosshair represents the area where Photoshop will erase pixels. So any pixels inside the circle that match the color of the pixel directly under the crosshair will be erased. So you'll find three options on top. The first one is continuous, which is selected by default. What it does is, as we move the background eraser brush around, Photoshop continuously samples the color under the crosshair. That's why when I accidentally move the crosshair over her face, it removes it. The continuous sampling option works great when the background you're trying to erase contains multiple colors. The option in the middle is the sample once option. What it means is it tells Photoshop to sample the color under the crosshair once, and that's it. Whichever color is under the crosshair, the moment you click your mouse button, is the color that Photoshop will erase, no matter how many other colors you drag the crosshair over. So in our example, when we use this option under a 22% tolerance, it also removed some parts of her hair, which means that her hair had similar color pixels, which is why it removed it, giving it more like a shiny look. Also, if you remember, we discussed the discontiguous option with the second method. Here, if you see, her right arm is between the green background and the small hole between her body and her arm that reveals the background. So if I want to remove it in one shot, I'd select discontiguous option. And when I click on the background, as long as that area is within the range of the brush, which is the outer circle of the brush, even though the pixels are not physically joined together, it will still erase that portion. And in our example, it is also erasing some parts of our right arm because it has the green color we sampled from the background. Let's reduce the tolerance to about 18% and then try it. You see, this time it spared the arm but did remove the background, revealing from the small hole between her arm and the body. Now let's change the option from discontiguous to contiguous and then use the brush. And you can see that since the two areas are not joined together, it just removed the background and it let the small hole live. So that's basically the difference between contiguous and discontiguous. Let's select Find Edges under Limits here and then try to remove the background. Find Edges is similar to contiguous in that it can only delete pixels that are physically touching the pixel under the crosshair, so it won't really help us as much. So now I'm going to use a trick where I will set my brush to sample once option and freely use my brush without worrying that it could affect parts of my girl here. Well, not really my girl. I'm going to go to Select and click on Subject, and Photoshop is going to do the selection of my subject, which is in this case the girl. Now obviously I don't want to remove the girl, I want to remove the background, so I'm going to go to Select and click on Inverse. So now everything else is selected but the girl. Now I can easily hit Delete or Backspace to remove the background, but my itchy fingers are compelling me not to do so. I'm going to change the tolerance to full 100% because now I know that the brush cannot harm the girl in any way. And using the background eraser tool, paint to erase the background, and it's gone. Then I can go to Layer and then New Fill Layer, hit OK to reveal the color picker, and then choose a color of choice, and then hit OK. And then drag the background color to the bottom. And there you go. Your image is ready with a new background. Time to move on to the fourth method to remove background, and we're going to use this lovely image for this illustration. Now you see, particularly for an image like this where we have the sky as our background, we can always use the background eraser tool to erase this. In fact, let's pick the background eraser tool here and change the sampling to continuous, because there are different color pixels involved in the background, so we can't use sample once option. Let's reduce the tolerance to about 25% and brush to remove the background. I think it did a neat job at removing the background, but it took a while to delete it. So let's look at the easiest option we can use to delete the sky. And this one is valid only if your background is the sky. So go to Select and click on Sky, and you'll find how brilliantly Photoshop selects the sky. You can get a better view of the selection by clicking on this button in the bottom of the toolbar. Your selection will be revealed as is and the rest will be masked red. You see how the sky behind the tree is also selected, so we don't really need to do anything to this image. Click on the button once again to come out of the quick mask mode and hit delete or backspace, and there you go, the background is gone. Let's add another image as our background here. So I have this image. I'm going to click and drag it to our original image. Then hit Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC to resize the image by dragging one of the corners, and then drag it to the bottom in the layers panel, and voila, our image has a new background. Let's move on to the next method, and for that I'm going to use this image. Now this image is not as simple as the rest because the color pixels of the background are very close to what our lady is wearing here and the loudspeaker she is holding. So we might have to use a combination of the subject selection tool and the quick selection tool as well to make our selection here. That's one of the reasons I did not call this method number 5. Since our subject is pretty pronounced, the subject selection might just work fine. So let's go to Select and click on Subject. Once the selection is made, let's verify our selection using the Quick Mask Mode button. I think the selection is pretty good, but there are issues here that we need to fix. So if you zoom in, you'll find that the edges of the loudspeaker on both sides are not selected well, so we'll have to fix that. So let's pick the quick selection tool to fix the issues here. Part of her shoulder is not selected, so ensure that you have the plus brush selected because we want this portion to be added to our selection. Click on the part to include it to our selection. Let's now move on to the loudspeaker and add the edges to our selection. To remove areas from our selection, pick the minus brush from the toolbar above, or what you can do is hold Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC and your brush turns into a minus brush till the time you're holding Option or Alt. Once your selection is done, verify your selection by clicking on the Quick Mask Mode and then click on Add Layer Mask button at the bottom of the Layers panel, and your background should now be gone. To touch up the edges in your image, you can have the mask selected, then pick the brush and ensure that the foreground color is set to white and paint over the edges to straighten them. I'm going to add another image to this one as the background, so I have this image opened. I'm going to click, hold and drag to my original image. Now hit Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC and drag one of the corners to resize the image. Next, move the image to the bottom in the Layers panel and your image is ready with a fresh background. It's time to move to the last method to remove background, and for that I have this image open. For this one I'm going to double click on the image in the Layers panel to open a pop-up window. We're going to use the Blend If option here to remove the background. Basically we'll use the luminosity of the layer to hide the pixels. we can see that our background has a lot of green in it. So from the blend if option, let's pick green from the drop down menu. From the two slider panels, you see we can use this layer control option to hide the pixels. We won't be using underlying layer for this one because we just have one layer anyway. So when we start to move the slider on the right, we can see how it removes our background progressively. Some information might be lost from the falling leaves as they kind of thinned down a bit, if you could see. You can press Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC to split the slider into two and move them to fine-tune your selection as well, if required. And then hit OK. Now let's add a background to this. So let's go to Layer, and then New Fill, and then Solid Color, and then hit OK because we're not interested in renaming the color. Once we hit OK, the color picker pop-up will appear from where we can pick a color and then hit OK. And now drag this layer to the bottom in the layers panel and we've got a new background for the image. Now let me tell you here, using this option we have not really removed the background physically, but have just hidden it. And that's one of the reasons why you can still see that the thumbnail in the layers panel still has the sky intact. To further test it, if we go to adjustment layer from the bottom of the layers panel and select color balance, and before making any changes ensure that you click on this icon so that it affects only the layer beneath it. And now when I try to move these color sliders, you'll find that the sky information reveals itself. You can use other colors as well to check this fact. Now the thing is that if you're fine with it, you can let it stay. Else all you need to do is just change this layer, the image layer so to speak, to a smart object. And for that, right click on this layer and then select Convert to Smart Object. And now to test if it works, let's go to the adjustment layer once again and pick the color balance option and then click on the icon so that it affects only the layer under it. And now when you move any of the color sliders, you'll find that the sky information is gone. So guys, these are the different methods you can use to remove the background. I hope you've enjoyed the video and have learned something from it. So do like, share and subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again on Sunday, goodbye and thanks for watching.